Welcome to the Facebook page of Watan Pra Ajarn. My name's Matt Habermel, and we're here with our guests today. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tan Dendong, or Ajahn Tan. He's a lecturer at Thammasat University in the Faculty of Architecture and Planning in the Department of Architecture and Real Estate Development. Thank you so much for being with us. Ajahn Tan is going to serve as our translator today. And I'd also like to introduce, in your bottom left corner, Miss Om Vimalrat. Om earned her bachelor's degree in music from the Kalaseen College of Dramatic Arts, and she will be our special musical guest today. And last but certainly not least, Pra Ajarn Supha. Pra Ajarn Supha was ordained as a Buddhist monk at age 13 and has spent the subsequent 36 years studying meditation academically and under the guidance of renowned meditation masters. He received the highest accreditations from the Thai Sangha Monastery, and he subsequently worked as an instructor at Mahamakut Buddhist University in Bangkok for several years. He is the author of several books on meditation and Buddhism. Ajahn, thank you for being with us. Before we get started, let's hear from our special musical guest, Om, whenever you are ready. Oops, I had my mic muted. If I was muted before, please do check out Om's Facebook page. The link there is on the screen. And there you can see her YouTube videos and Instagram. And I've checked out a number of the YouTube videos and they're fantastic. So please do that.
Wow, this is the best performance.
That was Om's, yes, incredible musician. And some of the ones on YouTube, she has backup with drums and everything. It's quite enjoyable. So please, there's her Facebook link on the screen. Please do check that out. Ajarn, thank you for joining us.
Thank you again. My extremely happiness to talk with you again, especially today we have the young PhD, Dr. Den Duong, come to help us as a translator, because now more and more Thai audience, follow our talk. So I think many people want to know what we are talking about.
Yes, here's Tan here. Thank you so much for joining us. So we've never done this with a translator before. So we'll keep you in the background. And then, Ajarn, if you find that there's anything that you would like to have translated, please do let us know and we'll bring Tan back in. Thank you.
Right. That would be excellent idea. Great.
So today, Ajarn, we're talking about altruism, and altruism is a path to happiness. We spoke briefly the other night about this topic, and it's interesting to see the differences in Eastern thought and Western thought, or at least Buddhist thought and traditional Western philosophy. My background is in philosophy. I have a master's in philosophy from the University of Toronto. So some of these topics are familiar to me, but they're unfamiliar in the Buddhist framework. So I thought maybe, Ajarn, what we could do is I could quickly lay out what altruism means in a Western context, and then if maybe we could contrast what that means in a Buddhist context. Does that work for you?
Right, that will be great. And then I expect translation also in this part, what you say, so that the audience will understand.
Sure. So what what we were going to do is just lay out what altruism means sort of in the Western context, and then after that we will compare with Ajarn letting us know what it means in the Buddhist context. If you wouldn't mind translating that would be wonderful.
I'll try my best.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So altruism in the Western context is basically there's two ways of looking at it. One is altruism as an ethic or as an overarching rule of behavior, and the other is an altruistic act, so something that describes a particular action.
ให้ so อาจารย์ให้ผมแปลเลยใช่ไหมครับ
ใช่อันนี้
ก็จริงๆแล้วaltruism เนี่ยก็เป็นคำศัพท์เฉพาะเนอะถ้าเกิดพูดถึงเรื่องก็คือความบริสุทธิ์ใจงั้นผมเข้าใจว่าแมทพูดถึง2แบบก็คือว่าในเรื่องของความที่เป็น moral หรือว่าเป็นความรู้สึกว่า you just talk about ethic right just normal ethic.
Yes, so there's sort of two ways of looking at it. One is sort of an ethic, like an altruistic person or an altruistic belief set, and then the other we might say some particular act was altruistic that somebody did.
Yeah. อย่างนิดนึง โอเคก็คิดว่าน่าจะหมายความว่า2แบบก็คืออันที่เป็นแค่ความรู้สึกในการที่ไม่เห็นแก่ตัวกับอีกอันนึงที่เป็นเจาะจงไปในแต่ละเรื่องที่เป็นความรู้สึกในเช่นผมเดาว่าจะเป็นเกี่ยวกับบริบทที่มันเฉพาะเจาะจงนะครับอาจารย์
And the simplest definition of altruism is basically looking out for the best interests of others, even at expense to oneself.
แล้วก็สิ่งที่มองว่าในความหมายคือการง่ายคือการไม่เห็นแก่ตัวการมองความผลประโยชน์ของคนอื่นมากกว่าผลประโยชน์ของตัวเองเป็นหลัก
And typically in the West, altruism as an ethic, as an overall rule for acting, is considered impractical.
ก็ในเบื้องต้นของทางตะวันตกเนี่ยเขาก็จะบอกว่าสิ่งพวกนี้มันเป็นwhen you can impractical is as like
yeah, it doesn't really work when you try to bring it into the real world, just because there's always something more you could do for others, and sometimes you can do that at risk to yourself. But let's say if you die in a process of being altruistic, you won't be around to help people in the future. So there's a little bit of a paradox that goes on there.
ก็อาจจะหมายความว่าในเรื่องจากความไม่เห็นแก่ตัวเนี่ยเป็นเรื่องที่เขามองในลักษณะที่อาจจะกึ่งที่เป็นไปไม่ได้แต่ว่าเหมือนสิ่งที่เขาทำคืออารมณ์ในลักษณะของความไม่เห็นแก่ตัวเนี่ยมีหลายระดับเพราะฉะนั้นการที่ selfless มากๆเนี่ยมันจะถูกแปลว่าท้ายสุดแล้วเนี่ยมันไม่สามารถที่จะปฏิบัติได้จริงแต่ว่าความรู้สึกนั้นยังมีอยู่ครับอาจารย์
ใช่อาจารย์ก็เข้าใจงั้น
And now, Ajarn, I wonder if you could tell us how altruism is understood in the Buddhist tradition.
Well, from my understanding, from the Western perspective about these concepts, you sacrifice your life for other people, but accept yourselves. In Buddhism, the concept of altruism start from yourself. So you have to taking care of yourself in order to helping another people. And from my understanding, in the Western world, they ignore oneself. They I mean, in regarding to this concept altruism, they don't think oneself evolved with this concept. But in Buddhism, the concept of altruism not only another people, helping another people, but including yourself. But the most important thing is that you have to start from yourself, helping yourself, before you actually helping another people. From what I feel in the Western world, when you talk about altruism, only another people helping the world, helping another people, go to call out for peace, go to call out for, for another people to what you call to not fighting with each other, to not create any conflict, but accept yourself, not talking about yourself.
Interesting.
In
Yeah.
Buddhism, we start from yourself. Say, for example, before you actually become a meditation teacher, you have to teach yourself first. You have to train your mind until you achieve a certain state of meditation, and then you start to teach people. I think similar with the lay person life, you have to work until you establish your business, and then you share wealthy and property to another people. So what if you are poor people, you don't have what you call good education, don't have good job, and then you go to try to help people? I think this is what the West try to do in the concept of altruism.
Yes. In the West, the concept of altruism is very closely tied to the idea of self-sacrifice.
Right. อาจารย์โมแปลหน่อยที่อาจารย์
สำหรับสองวิธีคิดนะครับที่พระอาจารย์ท่านพูดก็คือว่าในของตะวันตกเนี่ยจะมองในลักษณะของการที่เสียสละเพื่อส่วนรวมเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยเขาจะมีเรื่องของข้อจำกัดที่อาจจะทำไม่ได้เยอะแต่ว่าในของทางพุทธเราเนี่ยพูดถึงเรื่องของการเสียสละแต่ว่าจากตัวเราเองจากตัวตนของเราก่อนเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยการดูแลจิตใจของเราเองเนี่ยทำให้การเสียสละในภาพรวมมันเกิดขึ้นถูกไหมครับนั้น
ใช่ของตะวันตกเขาไม่มองตัวเองเขาเฉพาะว่าช่วยคนอื่นแต่เขาไม่ช่วยตัวเองก่อนคือเรื่องความคิดเรื่อง altruism.
So I wonder if you could tie together for us two different concepts. So one part of altruism is just being generous towards others. So I wonder if you could tie together for us how Buddhism considers altruism as related to generosity. Are they very similar concepts?
Yes. It seemed to me, I don't know, maybe Western people understand two different meanings between the concept of altruism and generosity. But for my idea as a Buddhist monk, it's the same idea. When you mentioned about generosity and altruism, because in the concept of generosity, so you have to become generous to yourself first, and in order to become generous to another people.
That's interesting. Yeah, we have slightly the same conflict in our thinking in the West too, is that generosity is considered to again be selfless. So the idea would be that if you're generous, you're not considering yourself, you're giving, but not taking care of the self.
That's what I understand from the way Western people and Buddhist people understand about the concept of generosity and altruism. So it seems to me that in Buddhism it's more practical, because if you don't feel full, if you don't eat until you feel full, and you cannot help another people, if you still hungry inside yourself, you cannot help another people, you have no energy. So it seems to me it's more practical in Buddhism, but in the West it's more ideal, cannot put in more action, because you keep saying helping another people. But what about yourself?
I think one of the reasons that's the case is because generosity and altruism, if they're taken out of a context of a religion or something like that, they don't have any grounding, and so they're just ideas that don't have any limits, and so it's very difficult to see how they work. Whereas within, say, Christianity, altruism would be, I guess, emulating Jesus, right? Always thinking about others, but Jesus did make the ultimate sacrifice according to the Christian story. So there is a lot of self-sacrifice in there, but at the same time, he lived 30 some odd years first, helping people before that happened. Whereas, so within the Christian context, there's a good that exists apart from altruism or generosity. And altruism and generosity is a way to achieve that good. But if you get rid of the good that the religion gives you apart from that, then there's nothing to anchor it. Sorry, Tan, I know that's probably impossible to translate.
That's okay
เพิ่มโมแปล
ผมเข้าใจว่าในศาสนาเนี่ยใน grounding ของการช่วยเหลือเผื่อแผ่กันนะครับการใน context ของศาสนาคริสต์เนี่ยพูดถึงเรื่องของการเสียสละตัวตนในมุมมองของพระเยซูที่เสียสละชีวิตแต่ว่าไม่ได้พูดถึงเรื่องของการที่เขาอธิบายการใช้ชีวิตหรือว่าการให้เผยแผ่ศาสนาหรือการช่วยเหลือคนก่อนหน้านั้นแต่ไปโฟกัสที่การไม่มีตัวตนการที่เสียสละตัวตนอย่างถึงที่สุดตอนท้ายทีนี้สิ่งที่ผมเข้าใจต่อจากนั้นก็คือว่าหลังจากนั้นเนี่ยในของศาสนาพุทธเองก็อาจจะอยู่คนละกราวกันอยู่คนละบริบทกันดังนั้นทำให้ในวงกว้างของ Altruism ในภาษา2ภาษาเนี่ยอาจจะไม่ได้มีความเชื่อมโยงกันที่ชัดเจนเพราะว่าอยู่คนละเลเวลกันหรือเปล่าทำให้การเสียสละของพระเยซูทำให้เหมือนเป็นเรื่องของวงกว้างแต่ของประเทศของศาสนาพุทธอาจจะเป็นเรื่องของตัวตนของบุคคล
ของเรานี่คำว่า altruism เนี่ยพระอาจารย์อยากจะแปลว่าทานการให้ทานบารมีทีนี้การให้ทานเนี่ยมันมาจากภายในคือมันเกิดจากความเมตตาและปัญญามันมาหนุนแต่ของเท่าที่ฟังของตะวันตกเนี่ยเรื่องทานเนี่ยมันเกิดจากพระเจ้ามันมาจากศรัทธาในพระเจ้ามันไม่ได้ออกจากข้างในมันไม่ได้มีความเมตตากับความกรุณาหนุนคือการให้ทานของเรานะมันเกิดขึ้นบนฐานของความเมตตากรุณาแล้วก็มันมีปัญญามาหนุนคือมันถึงเราถึงให้ทานแต่ว่าทางโน้นทางตะวันตกเนื่องจากศาสนาเดิมเขาเชื่อพระเจ้าคือทานการให้ทานของเขาเนี่ยมันให้เพื่อที่จะไปถึงพระเจ้าไปหาพระเจ้าพระอาจารย์เข้าใจอย่างนั้นโมลอง
So I'll try my best. Okay, I believe that the whole thing context was in the West we talk about how the giving is all for the purpose. Ajahn says for the purpose of getting closer to God for the journey. So the more you give, the how closer you be closer to the God to achieve that journey. But for Buddhism is it's about you want to translate the word ทานให้ทานให้ทาน in this meaning is actually mean the word giving not it's not if it just normal translation would be give some money to some person but it's not that it's just it's generosity is extend your generosity to the other person. I would say that it will mean not like giving but extend yourself to other people. That would be closer to not is giving but like part of like before you have that generosity you have to build up something in it and it including metta karuna which is other and panya is other basic foundation is like you have to have all these three things first before you give it to other people. So before you giving is not giving is more like extending yourself and then helping people to fulfill what are they missing. I believe is that is really a tricky one to understand between giving and extending your
yes. That's interesting. If I could sort of take a crack at it, it would be something like I assume this emerges out of the Buddhist non-self doctrine in some sense, right? So everybody and me, we're all the same, we're all one. And so to be generous is to almost recognize that you are me and I am you. And the kindness that I extend to myself, I'm now extending to you as a part of me almost. Is that close?
And what I say, this is what I said that yes, Dr. Dendong said right, and then I will put more my point. Like in the West, generosity relate with God. You giving. From religious person, you giving, you helping people in order to go close with God and reunite, become the same with God. But in Buddhism, the concept of altruism or generosity is based upon compassion and loving kindness, and it's come from within the mind. So generosity or altruism is more action, which is come from your compassion, seeing suffering of another people and feeling suffering of another people, and then because of that feeling is expressed out by a generosity, by helping people on altruism. So this is the concept of altruism or generosity in Buddhism. It's come within your mind, come from the quality of your compassion, the quality of your loving kindness to beings, sensual beings.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. So you have the quality of your mind is compassion. And then if you're empathizing with others, you will know, I guess, the right type of generosity to exercise in that particular situation.
Yes, actually, put it this way, compassion is always associated with wisdom or understanding. So whenever you have compassion, you feel suffering of another people. That feeling come from deeper understanding of reality of suffering of that person. Because of wisdom or understanding the suffering of sensual being, and because of compassion, so you become generous, you become altruistic person. So two quality here back altruism: one, wisdom or understanding suffering; second, compassion, to working together inside your mind, according to a Buddhist perspective. It's not the same with the Western perspective, especially religious perspective, which is you are generous, you are altruistic people based on the concept of God, on the way to reunite with God.
Right. Okay, so that's interesting
possible.
because in the West, compassion and wisdom and understanding are not typically associated with each other. I mean, they might be in any particular case, but they're not tied together conceptually.
In Buddhism, you cannot separate. So compassion and wisdom come together, always come together. But compassion alone without understanding or wisdom, we become fake compassions, not the real compassion. So whether the compassion will become fake or real depend upon wisdom or not wisdom. And sometimes some people might act like compassion people, but if you don't have wisdom, it doesn't become a real compassion. So you have to make a distinction between fake compassion and real compassions.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you about, because there are cases where, from the Western ideas of generosity
yes, I need translator too.
Oh, sure.
คือมันมีกรุณาเทียมกับกรุณาแท้อาจารย์
ครับผมอาจจะต้องเข้าใจนี่ผมเข้าใจถูกไหมครับว่าสิ่งที่พระอาจารย์พูดเมื่อกี้คือพูดถึงเรื่องของถ้าฝรั่งเนี่ยเขาคือการให้เฉยๆใช่ไหมครับแต่ว่าของไทยเนี่ยทุกอย่างเกิดจากกับเวทนาแล้วก็เห็นถึงปัญญาใช่ไหมครับ
คืออย่างนี้คล้ายๆกับคือฝรั่งเนี่ยเขาการให้นี่ที่เขาให้เนี่ยเพราะว่าเขาเชื่อในพระเจ้าครับคน คนที่เชื่อศาสนาคือการให้นี่มันเป็นการให้แล้วมันจะได้ไปเกิดกับพระเจ้าแต่ว่าของเราเนี่ยการให้ของเราเนี่ยมันไม่ได้รากฐานความเชื่อไม่เหมือนกันของเรามันเกิดขึ้นจากปัญญาและความกรุณาการให้ของเราเนี่ยมันเกิดจากปัญญากับกรุณาคือไปเห็นว่าชีวิตเนี่ยมันทุกข์จริงๆมันคือปัญญาเนี่ยไปเห็นแจ้งว่าชีวิตมันทุกข์ถึงไปช่วยให้เขาพ้นทุกข์แล้วการเข้าไปช่วยนั้นก็คือความกรุณาแต่ที่นี้อาจารย์ก็อธิบายว่าความกรุณามันมี2แบบมันมีแบบเทียมกับแบบแท้ถ้าความกรุณาที่มันไม่มีมันขาดปัญญาไม่มีปัญญาหนุนมันเป็นความกรุณาเทียมอย่างเราไปช่วยคนนั้นคนนี้นี่ช่วยสักว่าช่วยไปเพื่อที่จะหากำไรบ้างอะไรมันหลายๆอย่างโดยที่ยังไม่รู้ว่าจริงๆแล้วมันเป็นยังไงยังไม่เกิดปัญญามันเป็นความกรุณาเทียมส่วนความกรุณาแท้เนี่ยมันเห็นแล้วว่ามันทุกข์มันเห็นกระบวนการทั้งหมดถึงเข้าไปช่วยด้วยถึงเป็นกรุณาแท้คือมันเกิดจากปัญญาแล้วก็อธิบายให้เขาฟังอย่างนี้
I think there's in the general there's a concept of what we were talking about before where the ways where the extension altruism is just giving but I'm just going to talk in terms of Buddhism that I try to translate that what he mean is when you have before you extended compassion to understand compassion you have to understand the wisdom but that wisdom is separated into two ways one is to achieve that wisdom one is you just more like karuna which means there's two ways of karuna one he said that it's a fake one where you're just doing it for no particular reason because you feel like you're a good person and you're just doing it for keep doing it but another one that you do it because you enlighten you understand you see the truth and that's why you do it so in a way from like a separate person normal person would just do it because they feel like they have to do it to help people and that I feel like normal but in the deep Buddhist my thinking is to have achieve the wisdom the karuna itself have to come from the learning of the truth before you achieve the compassion.
Okay, that makes sense. In the West, when we think of our version of compassion and generosity, there's ways that they could go wrong. So, for example, I was actually looking this up in preparation for the talk today. Jordan Peterson, who's one of Canada's foremost public intellectuals, he speaks often about how compassion can actually go wrong. In the West, we relate compassion with empathy, so feeling what somebody else feels. So if you see somebody like a child, for example, who wants something really bad, like chocolate or something, or like some candy really bad, and if you extend your empathy to them and try to feel what they feel, and then have compassion based upon that empathy, you want to satisfy their desire. But of course, if you just give children candy all the time, it's not actually good for them. It's not helping anybody. So in that way, compassion and generosity, say if you're the one handing out the candy, can both go wrong in some sense. They can both be misplaced or not quite hit the mark. And I assume that in Buddhism, that wisdom and understanding is what prevents those bad outcomes. Would that be fair to say?
Right. In Buddhism, the wisdom is the baseline of compassion and generosity. It's the baseline. So
The baseline.
Right. So without wisdom, there wouldn't have no real compassion and generosity. So wisdom is the most important factor, which is back compassion and generosity. This is the Buddhist concept. So
And what is it that you need to understand in order to have effective compassion? So it's one thing to say you have understanding and wisdom, but what is it that you're understanding? What is it that you're wise about in order to apply compassion particularly well?
Well, actually, give you example. You see 6 people, or people who are in hospital, who get suffering from what you call sickness, and then basically for normal people, it's just nothing. But for people who using wisdom, they bring what they see to themselves. They will think, well, I will be the same with that person. Eventually, I will get sickness. I will get aging. I will go hospital. So when I will share the same suffering with them, how? So if I don't help, if I don't do something, and suffering still here because I always cannot avoid from suffering. So I need to do something, right? Become generous, to raising money to help them, and to help sick people, to build hospital, and so on. So because one day I will go to hospital, I will get sickness. Something. This is understanding when you see suffering. So you bring to yourself, and if you don't bring to yourself, it's become more intellectual. So you still become selfish. You don't care. So basically, wisdom or understanding, whenever you see phenomena surrounding you, you bring to yourself, and then the true wisdom will arising. But if you never bring to yourself deeper, the true wisdom cannot arising. It's become only intellectuals. Now we have a more smart people in the world, but they don't care people, They can be a weapon to kill people. But if they bring, what they study to themselves. So what if this weapon has been used to kill their cousin, their relatives, their son, their daughter? But this is the I think the wisdom will arising to that person.
Interesting. Can I bring it back to the example of the children and candy as well? So if a child is crying, they want candy, I feel bad for them. My first instinct might be to give them the candy, but then because I bring that back to myself, then I know what's good for me, and I know by extension what's good for them. And so in that case, maybe I wouldn't give them candy, but deal with it some other way. Is that a good metaphor?
Yes. That I think Dr. แปลหน่อย Dr. ตรงนี้
ครับก็ผมแปลจากคุณแมทแล้วกันนะครับ เพราะว่า
คุณแมท
เขาในมุมมองคุณแมทคือว่าถ้าการให้อย่างเขามองเห็นเรื่องของเด็กร้องไห้ที่อยากจะได้ขนมนะครับถ้าเราเป็นคนหนึ่งแล้วเราให้ขนมเด็กคนนี้เนี่ยแล้วเด็กคนนี้ก็ให้ทุกครั้งที่เขาร้องเราให้ไปเรื่อยๆเด็กคนนี้ก็จะกินขนมแล้วก็จะเกิดปัญหาอาจจะเป็นเบาหวานหรืออ้วนขึ้นนั้นการให้มันก็จะมีเขาพูดถึงเรื่องของ compassion คือความอาจจะเกิดปัญหาได้นั้นสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นก็คือพระอาจารย์ก็พูดถึงเรื่องของว่าของไทยเนี่ยจะถูกด้วยปัญญาการที่เรามีปัญญาในการมองเห็นปัญหาตรงนี้ก่อนที่เราจะไปแก้ไขปัญหาเพราะฉะนั้นสิ่งที่แตกต่างระหว่างของตะวันออกกับตะวันออกก็คือว่าของทางศาสนาพุทธเรามีปัญญาเป็นตัวกำหนดว่าการที่เราจะให้คนหรือจะดูแลคนเนี่ยมันหมายความว่ายังไงการที่เราเห็นถึงทุกข์อาจจะมองในความหมายคนละแบบกับเขาของเขาอาจจะมองเห็นในความทุกข์คือการเอาความรู้สึกของตัวเองไปรู้สึกกับคนอื่นแต่ของทางพุทธอาจจะเป็นในเรื่องของความทุกข์ในสิ่งที่มันเป็นไม่ได้พูดถึงเรื่องของความรู้สึกนั้นผมพูดถูกครับอาจารย์
คือพระอาจารย์ได้พยายามอธิบายครับว่าปัญญานี่มันจะเกิดเพราะว่า มันเกิดขึ้นเนื่องจากว่าการน้อมสิ่งที่สัมผัสทั้งหมดนะมาสู่ตัวเราถึงจะเกิดปัญญาแต่ถ้าไม่น้อมมาพิจารณาในตัวเราแล้วมันก็จะมีแค่ความรู้ intellectual ซึ่งมันก็ยังเห็นแก่ตัวแต่ถ้าน้อมเข้ามาหาเราเราก็จะเป็นอย่างนั้นเหมือนกันมันจะเกิดปัญญา
แล้วสิ่งพวกนี้เกิดขึ้นจากการวิปัสสนาถูกไหมครับจะไม่ใช่แค่คิดว่ามันเป็น
ใช่คือเดี๋ยวนี้ปัญหาของฝรั่งเท่าที่แมทคุยคือเรื่องเกี่ยวกับaltruism คือว่าใครก็ว่าเขาคนใครก็ว่าการให้ของฝรั่งนะคือการเดี๋ยวคือการเห็นความทุกข์ของคนอื่นนะทำไมมันถึงไม่เกิดความรู้สึกที่จะไปช่วยเขาคือบางคนเนี่ยเห็นคนทุกข์อยู่ก็จริงฝรั่งแต่ว่าเฉยๆยังเห็นแก่ตัวอยู่ถึงเห็นขอทานเห็นพวกนี้แต่อาจารย์บอกว่าก็เพราะว่าเขาใช้แต่ลอจิกคือเขาไม่ได้น้อมมาหาตัวเองว่าเราก็จะต้องทุกข์เหมือนกันคือพอไม่น้อมมาหาตัวเองแล้วปัญญามันก็จะไม่เกิดพอปัญญาไม่เกิดมันก็จะไม่เกิดการที่จะเสียสละจริงๆ Go ahead.
I think that's the whole narrative thing is it's involving in the word panya that or wisdom that we were talking about because of I think the way of understand the suffering. I think this is a different thing because in the Buddhism understand the suffering is not just thinking that you are suffering. It's truly understanding from within yourself.
So, kind of like feeling it in yourself rather than just understanding it?
It's not even feeling, it's knowing. That's what I understand. It's from the practicing of understand yourself. So the way is not like empathy that you understand that other people feel because you still think that they feel that way. But wisdom itself is coming from truly understanding that this is real, this is not real. It's kind of separate thing. It's not even understand the feeling because every time that you think that someone else thinking that way, it's that.
So, right. Yeah, that's wise. I was actually going to ask about that too because you can be wrong when you think you're empathizing, right?
Yeah, because you're thinking, but it's the wisdom itself that Ajahn said that you have to understand it from yourself, not thinking.
Okay, and Ajahn, is this with the sort of knowing in yourself? We spoke last time about consciousness. Is it that kind of knowing that we're talking about?
Yes, something like meditation. Meditation is the path to achieve wisdom. So more deep reflection about yourself. So this is the path of meditations.
Amazing. Okay, so here is the next question, and the title of the conversation was Altruism as a Path to Happiness. So now, as you can imagine from the Western idea of altruism, one's own happiness is irrelevant. And so being an altruist is not actually a good way to your own happiness because you'll be sacrificing that every moment. So we have a bit more of a subtle understanding now of how Buddhism thinks of altruism, compassion, generosity. So try to link that up for us to happiness and how that works. I think in the West, if we say that we want to do something for our own happiness, that immediately disqualifies it from being altruism. I don't know, Tom, is there a way to put that that little distinction there?
Yeah.
Well, this is the แปลหน่อย
ครับก็ในมุมมองของคำถามต่อไปก็คือการที่จะเดินไปถึงความสุขที่คุณแมทถามมาความสุขคืออะไรเพราะฉะนั้นการที่บางครั้งทางตะวันตกเขาอาจจะคิดว่าถ้าให้แล้วเพื่อความสุขของเราเองเนี่ยมันเหมือนอาจจะทำให้เหตุผลในการให้มันเพื่อตัวเองมันก็จะไม่ได้เป็นการให้เพื่อคนอื่นดังนั้นการทำเพื่อให้ตัวเองเรามีความสุขมันก็อาจจะมีคำถามแล้วคำถามคือว่าเราความสุขนั้นคืออะไร
I would like to put it this way, and then it seemed to me your question how altruism relate to the concept of happiness. as we discuss, as we are discussion about this concept, which is based upon wisdom or understanding. Say, from Buddhist perspective, when you understand suffering of sensual being in more deeper level, and then you want to help them to liberate from suffering. So because of this kind of thinking, you become a generous, you become altruism. Say you have more opening mind to help people. Say, for example, you build hospital, you giving food to poor people, you doing a charity foundation and so on to help people who get suffering. I think when you look at the world, without charity, without giving, without some kind of activity to help each other, if more and more people focusing on themselves, don't care on other people, don't help each other, I think, well, we will have more conflict, we will have more war. But because I mean many people, not only in the West and also in Thailand, Buddhist people, they do a lot of charity, they do a lot of work to help other people. So this is the way to make society become more wealthy, society become more healthy. So say, for example, if we have some kind of rich people in the world, give money to help poor people, to help what you call suffering people, to build a foundation, to and so on and on, then the world still be happy. But if you get more rich people and focusing on themselves, they keep money for them only, they keep a property for them only, they don't share with other people, they don't help people. So I think the world will not be happy. So if we have more selfish rich people,
it's a good point. Like, it's well known that if you live in a rich community but you have a poor community around you, you're more likely to get crime impacting you. Whereas if you were to give some of that money to help the people around you, the crime rates would drop, you yourself would be more happy, safer. So that's a very practical reason to do it, for sure.
This is what I think. So that's why the concept of altruism bring happiness to not only individual but society and the world. So we need more and more altruistic people.
It struck me too that when you were talking about wisdom and understanding and its relationship to altruism, that if you understand the root of suffering, which is attachment and grasping, when you see somebody suffering, you're more likely to come up with a good solution than if you didn't understand that. So for the child and the candy example, if you didn't understand that grasping was the root of suffering, you might just give the child candy.
Right.
Whereas if you understand that grasping is the root of suffering, you see the child grasping for the candy, you see that that's why they're suffering. And maybe if you understand that, you can lead them to a better solution.
Yes, that is right. This is the way of Buddhism to deal with that. Wisdom.
Interesting.
Yes.
So the path to happiness then is, I guess is it just the practical? Is it just the pragmatic that if other people aren't suffering, you're going to be happier? Or is it deeper than that?
โมแปลหน่อยตรงนี้
ผมอาจจะมาพูดถึงเรื่องของความสุขครับก็คือว่า Matt, let's talk clear that a little bit. You talk about like the happiness in term of what is it, or that's what I understand. What I'm
Oh,
trying to understand here is what you mean by happiness.
Can you
yeah.
say again, Matt, to verify your point?
Sure. So just as a path to happiness, I'm just trying to put this together. So we had already said that if you're generous, if you're charitable, you're going to live in a place with less crime, for example, and so that benefits you, and that makes it so that you could be happier. You could live with less suffering. Let's put it that way, right? So that's a very practical reason why you might want to be generous, why you might want to be good to others and compassionate. Is that the full reason that altruism leads to happiness? Or is there something deeper than that? Or is it just that simple? I mean, that could be enough.
Well, from Buddhist perspective, altruism not only bring happiness to society, but bring happiness to oneself in each individual levels. For example, when I see Buddhist people practice generosity or giving something else, they feel releasing. They feel, light, releasing happiness, because then they feel they're helping people to be more happy, and then they themselves feel more happy, because whenever you help people become more happy, and then we have a very good faith. They have good feeling towards you. They treat you very politely. So you also feel happy because another people treat you very polite, very respect, and they have a smile face. And that's because of generosity, because of helping that you do for another people. So whenever you help people, then people become happiness, and then the happy people you will get something, the result, you will get result of generosity. Not only you give and then nothing return to you, from Buddhist perspectives. So every kind of action of a generosity will bring good consequences. Even you give food to tiny ants, still get a good result. According to Buddhist literature, if you give food to one small ant, for example, and that the result of that action will make you become a healthy person in 100 lifetime, will help you to have a long life expectancy. 100 lifetime will make you have a more more influential, more people helping you, more powerful people in 100 lifetime. So the consequence, the result of giving just two small ant give a lot of result, according to good result according to Buddhist perspective.
Interesting.
Not only just giving and then nothing return. No. So because of this kind of reality, which is the Buddha taught, and then Thai people are very generous. Very generous. In the world, if I would like to say, in comparison with the West and Thai people are the most generous person in the world, because they understand that whenever they give, even though a small thing they give, they receive something in return, good consequences. Not only like say you give a money, $1 to another people. Not only you get $1 from another people, but you sometimes you give their money, but you get good feeling from another people. You get trust from another people. So more deeper than money. You give $1 to people, and then you get trust. You get what you call good feeling, the feeling of friendship, and so on. this is not money, but more deeper. This is much more meaning,
It's interesting because the whole time you've been explaining what good effects come back to you when you're generous. There's one thing that you haven't said that somebody in the West might come up with as their first reason. And that is, and I'd like you to talk about why you haven't said this. When people are generous, sometimes they think, oh, I'm such a good person. I'm so generous. I'm the best. And that gives you good feelings, right? Because you're thinking about how good you are. But I noticed that when you're speaking about it, it's all about sort of the consequences and your relationships with other people, not about your self-concept. Could you reflect on that a little bit?
Well, I think from my Buddhist perspective, our life will be happy or not happy in the world depend upon relationships with another people. So if you have a bad relationship with your wife, your kids, your colleagues, and so on, I think you will feel loneliness. You will feel suffering because nobody care you.
Right.
But the way to create good relationships in order to live more happy life is giving, helping people. No matter they feel bad or negatively or whatever, if you help them, you feel, first of all, you feel happiness, and then eventually that person will feel, wow, this person is very good. So how I can do something in order to help them back? So that's the why the concept of altruism in Buddhism is generous happiness. So because it increase good relationship with people surrounding you. And I'll give you another example about animals, monkey, because in the West, scientists like to make experimentation with the monkey. Give you example. One occasion, I went to meditate in the cave, which is having many monkey in the cave. And then the first day, second day, monkey feel scary to me. They never try to approach me. They feel scary. It seemed to me that I this is what I feel. I feel, wow, this monkey might think stranger guy. Be cautious.
Yeah, he's scared of you.
This guy, be cautious, stranger. Maybe dangerous, right? And then later, 1 week later, I go to the village and take food from people. This is normal the way monk live. Then I have a sticky rice, and then I give a sticky rice to the monkey. I throw the sticky rice to the monkey. First of all, no monkey approaching and getting sticky rice. They still feel cautious. This is stranger. Be careful. Maybe dangerous. I think that's the way they feel. And I keep throw a sticky rice to them. Eventually, one monkey got sticky rice. And when one got sticky rice, and the second come, the third come, and eventually, 1 month later, the monkey approaching me, come. They don't feel fearful to me. They come to me and then very close, and then get sticky rice from my hand.
Wow.
I think this is the because you are the Westerner scientist. You like to do experimentation with the monkey, right? So first of all, me and monkey don't know each other, feel scary, don't trust. But when you are generous, you give stick rice to them, then they become friends. Since that we live with each other very happily,
Yeah, that's a good point. That seems to be pretty deep in our evolutionary history. Like we share it with monkeys, and I think even dogs too would feel the same.
Oh, yeah, I think human being is the same with the monkey.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, very close. At least very close to the chimpanzee anyways.
more แปลหน่อยตรงนี้แปลหน่อย
โอ้ยาก is very difficult ผมเข้าใจว่าทั้งหมดก็คือว่าพูดถึงการเหมือนการให้ทานทำบุญใช่ไหมครับอาจารย์ที่เรามองว่าฝรั่งเขาอาจจะมองว่าการให้ทานหรือว่าการทำบุญของฝรั่งเนี่ยคือทำให้เขารู้สึกดีขึ้นก็คือเหมือนเขาก็จะเป็นคนดีเขารู้สึกว่าเขาเป็นคนดีแล้วแต่ว่ามันไม่พอเพราะฉะนั้นการถ้าทุกคนทำในเหมือนของสังคมไทยสังคมพุทธที่อาจารย์พูดถึงก็คือการที่เราทำบุญเป็นเรื่องปกติและเราให้เป็นเรื่องปกติแล้วเพราะฉะนั้นสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นในสังคมคือการที่เกิดความเชื่อใจกันเกิดทำให้ปฏิสัมพันธ์ในความรู้สึกของคนดีขึ้นถูกไหมครับแล้วก็พระอาจารย์ก็เปรียบถึงเหมือนตอนที่พระอาจารย์อยู่ในถ้ำก็คือการพระอาจารย์ค่อยๆให้ข้าวเหนียวลิงตอนแรกมันก็ไม่เชื่อพระอาจารย์แต่ตอนหลังเนี่ยการที่พระอาจารย์โยนไปเรื่อยๆเนี่ยrelationship หรือว่าความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างลิงกับพระอาจารย์ก็จะดีขึ้นเพราะฉะนั้นเกิดจากสิ่งที่ไม่ควรที่จะมาเชื่อมโยงกันแต่ว่าการให้ทานทำให้ความสัมพันธ์และการความเชื่อใจนั้นเกิดขึ้น
ก็มีความสุขทีนี้ความสุขมันก็เกิด
ครับก็ความสุขแล้วก็เกิดความสุขใช่ครับ
ใช่นะ Go ahead Matt yes
Well, Ajarn, I think we've come full circle. So we've talked about altruism, we've talked about compassion, and we've talked about its relationship to happiness. And we're over an hour now in our discussion. So I wanted to see if you had anything that was remaining that you'd like to say, that you'd like our audience to understand about the topic.
Well, this is my sum up and conclusion. And from Buddhist perspective, the concept of altruism or generosity is so important, not only in each individual level, but society and the world. Now we look at the world, a lot of conflict, wars, and so on, because of the selfishness, self-centered, not sharing, not giving. So if we have the more and more people become generous, have the sense of giving service to another people. And this is the way to prevent war and conflict. This is the way to create happiness, not only in each individual level, but also in society and the world also. I think this is the so important concept in Buddhism. So whenever we wake up every day, we have to think how I can help another people in this day. So I think if everyone in the world now, 7 billion people wake up with the feeling of generosity, the feeling of helping another people, I think the world will become more happy, more peaceful. But now it seems to me we have more and more people wake up with how I can get from another people.
Yeah. What can I take from others and give to myself?
Then when they wake up, then immediately they feel what I can get from another people. And this is the cause of conflicts and the cause of wars. But how we can change the attitude of people, 7 billion people, when they wake up, they should think how I can give people. Then how we can change. It's the role of education, I think.
Well, let's make that everybody who's watching this now and in the future, let's make that our goal for tomorrow. Let's wake up and think to ourselves, how can we be of service to others?
This is what I hope. This is very practical, especially Buddhist monk. Just give you an example. When they wake up, they sit silence, meditate, and then after they finish meditation, they emerge, and then they send out a compassion, a loving kindness to central beings surrounding them and to central being all over the world. And then they look at the temple, people in the temple, to some people have a problem and some people get sickness and so on, and then they try to help another people in the temple, and then they think about people who they know what kind of suffering they have, and then they try to find a way to help them to recover with the problem in terms of the mind. Spiritual advice, give them spiritual advice to them. So when they wake up, they go to meditation, they go to the what you call emerge, and then they go to compassion, they practice compassion, and then they think who is suffering now, who are suffering now. If they know, they think how to help this person to overcome suffering. So this is the way of Buddhism training their mind too. But we never train the mind wake up and think what I should get from another people, what I should take from another people today. No, we never train the mind that. We just training the mind wake up and think how can you help people to recover from suffering. I think how we can encouraging people to train and to educate themselves in this way, to have this kind of attitude. I don't know. I have to ask Dr. Dendo from. I have to ask you, Matt, how to do. I don't know.
Well, I think it's a wonderful suggestion that you just think about the people in your life and what kind of suffering they're going through and how you might be able to help. We have very busy minds. Our minds are always going a mile a minute, and that type of thing doesn't get a lot of mind share typically. If you were to sit there, this is what I think is actually quite helpful too about Christian prayer, is that gives you an opportunity to do just that, right? To think about those who are in need, to focus your intention on those people and how you might be able to help them. It gives mind share to the desire to help other people. Whereas typically without prayer, without that sort of meditation, or without that conscious thought, you may never have that thought in a day.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And so having that thought once a day is going to be infinitely better than never having it. That's for sure.
Right. So, but then right. So how we can encouraging people to have this kind of attitude. So I don't know as Buddhist monk. So it depends on you, Matt. It depends on Dr. Dendo.
Well, thank you so much. We'll give it our best. I think that's a wonderful thing, though, for people who are watching this to try, is just to wake up and have those thoughts. Think about who in my life could use a hand today. I think that's very wise. Thank you.
If you can do every day, every morning, that will be excellent.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Ajarn, thank you. Dr. Dendwan, thank you so very much. Kapkun Krap Chokti. And it was wonderful to have you. I hope we can do this again. And Ajarn, thank you. Kapkun Krap. Much metta.